Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Picture this: you're a CIA operative, you've been trained to spot KGB moles in Berlin, and topple governments in the jungle. You're a professional, you're elite, and then your boss hands you a clipboard and tells you to go to a church basement in Alabama to see if the people singing hymns are actually Soviet sleeper agents. Welcome to the 1960s, where the agency decided that foreign intelligence actually meant anything happening in America that makes us nervous. This was Project Scranton. It was the day the CIA decided that the biggest threat to the United States wasn't a nuclear missile, it was a picket line. The Declassified Family Jewels report, the CIA's own confession booth, reveals that Project Scranton was a direct violation of the agency's charter. Project Scranton was a specialized component of the broader Operation Chaos. While Chaos looked at the anti-war movement, Scranton focused specifically on African American leaders and black nationalist groups. The agency was obsessed with the idea that the civil rights movement was being funded by Moscow, despite their own analysts repeatedly telling them there was zero evidence of it. A quote from a declassified internal CIA memo from 1967. The purpose of Scranton Initiative is to determine the extent to which foreign elements are providing financial or ideological support to domestic racial extremists. We must identify the nexus between urban unrest and external agitation, end quote. The agency didn't just watch from afar. They recruited domestic assets, informants, to join civil rights organizations. These spies were tasked with recording private meetings, identifying radicalizing influences, and creating psychological dossiers on leaders like Stokely Carmichael. The irony, most of the intel they gathered was basically just the same stuff people were saying on the evening news. The scope of the project extended to monitoring international travel of prominent figures within the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC. The CIA utilized its overseas stations to track these individuals as they visited African and Caribbean nations, attempting to find evidence of revolutionary training that would justify their domestic intervention. By the height of the project, the CIA had compiled an index of over 300,000 names of American citizens and organizations within the Chaos and Scranton databases. Roughly 7,200 of these files were full personality dossiers containing deeply personal information about the individuals' families, finances, and medical histories. A quote from the Church Committee report. The CIA's mission is to collect foreign intelligence. By involving itself in the surveillance of domestic groups, the agency exceeded its statutory authority and trespassed on the Fourth Amendment rights of the very citizens it was sworn to protect. End quote. While the existence of the project is out in the open, the active measures section of the Scranton files looks like someone spilled a bottle of black ink on every other page. The heaviest redactions follow the disruption protocols. There's heavy speculation that the CIA didn't just observe, they engaged in character assassination. The theory suggests the redacted pages hide plans to leak fabricated information about the private lives or finances of civil rights leaders to the press to discredit them. A domestic coup without the gunfire. Further speculation surrounds the joint FBI coordination. Analysts believe the redacted pages detail a secret illegal data sharing bridge between the CIA and J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. The speculation is that the agency used its advanced overseas technology to wiretap domestic activists, then laundered the information through the FBI to keep the CIA's involvement hidden from the courts. A long-standing theory among researchers is that Project Scranton was involved in the neutralization of key activists through more than just rumors. Some theorists speculate that the redacted operational tactics section include the use of psychoactive drugs or behavioral modification techniques, remnants of the MK Ultra era, to sow paranoia and internal strife within the movement. There's also a persistent belief that the CIA was tracking financial conduits that didn't actually exist, and when they couldn't find them, they seeded small amounts of foreign currency into the belongings of certain targets. The theory suggests this was a failsafe to ensure that if a leader was ever arrested, they could be charged with being a foreign agent. Was Project Scranton a success? If you measure success by finding communists, it was a catastrophic failure. If you measure it by generating paperwork, it was a masterpiece. A quote from CIA Director Richard Helms post-investigation: "We were under extreme pressure from the White House to find a foreign connection that simply did not exist. We looked for it, we looked hard, but at the end of the day, the dissent was homegrown." Despite the lack of evidence, the CIA produced thousands of pages of reports for President Johnson and Nixon. These reports often used loaded language describing peaceful protest as pre-insurgency phases to keep the funding flowing for the project. The project was eventually shut down after the family jewels leak led to the Rockefeller Commission and the Church Committee. It resulted in strict new laws prohibiting the CIA from spying on American citizens on U.S. soils, laws that essentially told the agency, "stay in your own yard." A declassified testimony of a Scranton operative: "We weren't looking for spies, we were looking for a way to tell the president what he wanted to hear. He wanted to hear it was all a Russian plot. We failed because the truth wasn't convenient." Even when they were breaking the law, the agency was technically brilliant. Operational breakthroughs, the pattern analysis algorithm. Scranton pioneered early computer-based tracking of travel patterns, flagging any activists who visited suspicious locations like Prague or Havana. Hidden audio miniaturization. The project accelerated the development of microphones hidden in everyday objects, like pens or buttons, designed to withstand the high-energy environments of crowded protest and rallies. And mail cover automation. The agency developed a high-speed system for photographing the outside of envelopes addressed to targets of interest, creating a massive social graph of who was talking to whom long before the internet existed. Scranton also led the refinement of vacuum-sealed microfiche storage. Because the agency was collecting so much data on American citizens, they needed a way to store it that was easily hidden from routine audits, leading to a breakthrough in high-density data compression long before the digital age. Project Scranton proved that paranoia is a hell of a drug. The CIA spent years looking for a Russian puppet master behind the civil rights movement, only to realize that the external agitator they were so afraid of was actually just the American conscience. Next time on CIA Declassified, we leave the church basements of Alabama and head for the frozen mountains of the 38th parallel. We examine Project Tropic. How do you drop a human being into the most hostile territory on Earth and expect them to survive? We'll look at the declassified logs of the agents dropped into North Korea during the 1950s. From night jump protocols to the heartbreaking reality of the discarded spies, we explore the most dangerous mission in the agency's early history. Join us for the frozen drop. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.